It is January 22nd, 2026. The mood in English cricket is, well, it's tense.
To say the least.
If you've been following the sport, you know the context. The Ashes in Australia were a disaster. The team has just lost the first one-day international in Sri Lanka. But if you look at the headlines today, the biggest story, it isn't about batting averages.
No, it isn't about dropped catches.
And it's not about bowling figures. It's all about what happened outside a nightclub in Wellington, New Zealand, nearly 3 months ago.
It's a story that has been bubbling under the surface. It was kept hidden from the public very intentionally, and now it's just exploded at precisely the wrong moment for the England Cricket Board.
We are talking about the Harry Brook incident. It involves a captain, a punch from a bouncer, and a management decision to keep it quiet. But our mission today isn't just to rehash celebrity gossip.
Not at all.
We want to use this incident as a case study. We're going to be looking at leadership. We're looking at the mechanics of transparency and what happens when a so-called relaxed high-performance culture collides with professional responsibility.
It's a fascinating look at organizational behavior, really. And to understand this mess, we're going to walk through two primary sources. The first is a very candid and, I have to say, somewhat uncomfortable interview Harry Brook gave to TalkSport Cricket.
Right, where he finally apologizes.
He does. And the second is a critical analysis piece from ESPN Cricinfo titled NZ Confidential by Cameron Ponsonby.
And that article really dissects the timeline and, more importantly, management's role in creating this whole situation.
Ponsonby's analysis is absolutely crucial here. It shifts the conversation from, a player messed up to the system failed.
So here's our roadmap for this deep dive. First, we will look at the specific details of the incident itself and Brook's rather unusual confession. Second, we'll examine the timeline of the so-called cover-up by the England Cricket Board and try to understand why they did it.
And finally, we will try to make sense of the confusing aftermath, regarding team culture, these new curfews they brought in.
It's a complex web of decisions, so we do need to take this step by step.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with the facts. The incident in question took place in Wellington, New Zealand. It was Halloween night. Now, for you listening, you might not know the schedule. Why is this specific date so important?
Well, context is everything here. It was the night before the third one-day international against New Zealand.
Right.
And in professional sports, the night before the game it's sacred. Being out late is one thing. Being out late when you're supposed to lead your country onto the field in a few hours is pretty significant.
According to Harry Brook's own admission in that TalkSport interview, he and some teammates went out. He claims the intention was innocent enough.
He says they just went to get food and have a few drinks. He explicitly says there was, quote, no intention of getting into trouble.
Which is what everyone says in hindsight, of course.
Of course. But trouble found him. Or, as he put it, he put himself in a bad situation. Brook attempted to enter a nightclub. He was refused entry, and in the resulting altercation, the England captain was punched by a bouncer.
Getting punched is bad enough, but the way this information came to light within the team is even more unusual.
Oh, it's bizarre.
The next day, a video surfaced on social media showing the group at a bar. It didn't show the punch, it just showed the players out and about.
And this brings us to the confession.
Yeah.
This is one of the most staggering details in the sources. Brook didn't tell management immediately after it happened. He didn't call the coach at 3 a.m.
No.
He told them the following day. But he didn't just tell them during a breakfast meeting. He told them mid-game.
Wait, just to clarify for you listening, imagine the scene. You're captaining your country in a match. You are on the field, and in the middle of play, you go to your bosses and say, by the way, I got punched by a bouncer last night.
It sounds absurd, doesn't it? But Brook was very clear about his motivation here in the interview. He said, and I'm quoting, if I hadn't told them and I didn't get them punishments, then the punishments would be even worse.
So it's a tactical confession.
Exactly. He saw the video on social media. He realized the clock was ticking. He was essentially confessing to mitigate the damage because he feared that the full story was about to break. He was trying to get ahead of the news cycle while wearing his whites.
And the immediate consequences were severe, internally at least.
Right. England lost that match. They lost the series 3-0, and Brook was fined £30,000.
Which is the maximum amount possible under their disciplinary code?
It is.
Yeah.
But the money isn't the main thing. He was also placed on a final warning.
He even admitted in the source material that he feared being sacked as captain. He said he would have accepted it if they had fired him as long as he could keep playing. He considers himself lucky to still be in the job.
And that gives you a sense of the gravity. This wasn't a minor infraction. In his own words, it was a terrible mistake.
So we have a captain who made a mistake and was punished internally. But, and this is the key, this all happened in November. The public didn't hear about the punch until after the Ashes were lost in January.
A huge gap.
Now let us pause for a moment to consider the timeline. Pause. This brings us to the second part of our deep dive. The cover-up, or perhaps more accurately, the bind that England management created for themselves.
The core issue here isn't just the punch itself, it is the gap in information. The incident happened before the Ashes tour of Australia. But the fans, the people who spent thousands of pounds traveling to Australia to support the team, were completely in the dark.
Cameron Ponsonby's article highlights a very specific moment involving Rob Key. He's the managing director of England men's cricket, and this took place before the Boxing Day test in Melbourne.
Right, so set the scene for us.
Well, the Ashes were already going badly. England was losing. The press was sniffing around, asking questions about the team's culture, their discipline. And Rob Key was asked specifically about behavioral issues. His response was that there had been, quote, no formal action and no issues really with any players for 4 years.
But at that exact moment, he knew for a fact that his captain had been punched outside a nightclub and fined £30,000 just weeks earlier.
Ponsonby calls this lying by omission. But Rob Key has a defense for this, doesn't he?
He does. And it's a classic piece of corporate wordplay. Key's defense is that he was answering questions about that specific social media video we mentioned earlier.
The one showing them at the bar.
Exactly, not the punch itself. So since the press didn't know about the punch to ask about it specifically, he felt justified in saying there were no issues.
So because the press didn't know the right question to ask, he just didn't volunteer the answer.
Precisely. It creates a situation where the statement is, technically true regarding the video, but deeply misleading about the reality of the team's discipline.
So this begs the question, why? Why would they hide it? What's the logic behind keeping such a massive secret, especially when these things almost always leak eventually?
Ponsonby argues that management likely believed revealing it would just destroy the team's confidence right before the biggest series of their lives.
The Ashes.
Exactly. The Ashes is the pinnacle for England and Australia. They want to protect that relaxed environment that has been the hallmark of this era. They thought they could contain it.
But secrecy comes with a cost. And Ponsonby describes this cost as a bind. Once things started going wrong in Australia, management was paralyzed.
Think about it. During the tour, there were other incidents. There were reports of Ben Duckett pouring a drink over James Anderson in a bar in Noosa, players being turned away from a casino in Perth.
Right. And usually in a high-performance environment, management would step in and publicly address this. They'd say, this is unacceptable, we're tightening up.
But they couldn't, and this is the bind. They couldn't take a hard line on Ben Duckett publicly for pouring a drink without questions being raised about the captain. I mean, if you crack down on a player for a late night in Noosa, how do you justify staying silent about the captain getting punched in Wellington?
So to protect the secret of the punch, they effectively lost control of the narrative for the entire tour.
That is the argument. They couldn't address the drinking culture because the biggest, most egregious example of it, the captain's incident, was being hidden away. The secret just handcuffed them.
It's a fascinating look at how a cover-up can rot the foundation of authority. You can't enforce rules if the guy at the top is living by a different set or if his rule breaking is being hidden.
Exactly.
Next, we will look at the contradictions in the official story. Pause. Even now that the truth is out, there are parts of the story that just don't quite add up. One of the most interesting sections of Ponsonby's analysis is what we might call the alone theory.
This deals with the specifics of that night in Wellington. In his apology interview, Harry Brook was asked who he was with when the incident happened. He admitted he started the night with teammates. He mentions Gus Atkinson, Josh Tongue,
Tom Banton, and Jacob Bethel, a standard group outing.
Right. But then he claims that at a certain point, he took it upon himself to stay out, and everyone else went home. He insists he was alone at the nightclub when the punch occurred.
And Ponsonby treats this claim with, let's say, extreme skepticism.
He does. And when you look at the context of the schedule, you can see why.
Okay, let's look at the scenario again. It was a Friday night. It was Halloween.
And crucially, most of the other players he was with, Atkinson, Tongue, Banton, did not have a game the next day. They had time off.
Right.
Harry Brook, the captain, was the one who did have a match the next morning.
So, the official story asks us to believe that a group of young men in their 20s on Halloween with no work the next day. They all decided to be responsible and go home early.
Meanwhile, the one guy who had to captain his country the next morning said, "No, I'll crack on by myself."
It kind of defies the usual logic of how these social groups operate.
It really does. Athletes tend to move in packs.
hmm
Ponsonby suggests there is a strong possibility that Brook is taking the bullet.
And by taking the bullet, you mean he's lying to protect them.
Ponsonby implies that Brook might be refusing to dob in his mates, as they'd say. If he admits they were there at the nightclub with him, they also get in trouble. By saying he was alone, he contains the damage to just himself.
Which is honorable in a mateship sort of way. It shows loyalty to the players.
It does. But it complicates his claim that he's being totally transparent with the public and the board. If he's obscuring the truth to protect his friends, it suggests that even in the apology, we might not be getting the full picture.
It reinforces this theme of managed truth. We're only being told what they think is safe for us to know.
And for you listening, this matters because it speaks to the culture within the team. Is the loyalty to the standard of excellence, or is the loyalty to protecting each other from the consequences of bad decisions?
Before we move on, let us examine the fallout regarding team culture. Pause. This brings us to the present day. We're in Sri Lanka. The secret is out. The fans know. The press knows. And suddenly the rules have changed drastically.
And to understand why this change is so jarring, we have to look at the philosophy of this team under coach Brendan McCullum. It's often called baseball.
And baseball isn't just about hitting the ball hard on the field, it's a lifestyle.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The philosophy has always been, we treat you like adults. Go play golf, drink coffee, have a beer if you want, relax. We trust you to prepare in your own way. It was a reaction against the strict, authoritarian coaching styles of the past.
In his interview, Brook defended this style. He said, I don't think there's a drinking culture at all.
Right. He argued that there are grown-ups who can say yes or no. And yet, and here's the contradiction, immediately following this whole admission, a midnight curfew has been introduced for the Sri Lanka tour.
A curfew? That feels like the complete opposite of the treat them like adults philosophy.
It feels like school. It's a massive policy reversal. Brook called it a group decision to help them win games. But Ponsonby points out a major flaw in that logic, and it's a damning one.
I think I see where you're going with this. If a curfew is a tool that helps you win games.
Then why wasn't it used for the Ashes? The Ashes was described by McCullum as the biggest series of our lives. If being home by midnight is a performance enhancer, surely that was the time to implement it.
But they didn't. They let them do what they wanted in Australia. They only implemented it now for an arguably less significant tour in Sri Lanka.
Ponsonby argues that this proves the curfew is performative. It's infantilizing. It hasn't been brought in because the coach believes in it as a high-performance tool.
No.
It's been brought in because the public now knows about the punch.
So it's essentially a PR move, a way to show the angry fans, look, we're taking this seriously, we're punishing them.
That is the interpretation. It appeases the fans who spent money traveling to Australia and watching the team lose. But it contradicts the actual coaching philosophy that has been in place for years. It signals that management is reacting to external pressure rather than sticking to their internal beliefs.
And this creates a tension at the very top of English cricket. The source mentions a potential power struggle brewing.
Yes. Think about the personalities involved. You have Coach Brendan McCullum, who famously hates curfews. He loves freedom. He believes in player autonomy.
And on the other side,
You have CEO Richard Gould and the executives. They need to restore order and public trust after a PR nightmare.
and neither can easily walk away from this situation.
No. McCullum has a contract until 2027. If he quits on principle, he loses a lot of money. If the ECB fires him, they have to pay him a massive payout. Ponsonby calls it the great staring contest of 2026.
It seems like the Harry Brook incident has triggered a chain reaction that threatens to dismantle the entire culture of the team. It started with a punch, it turned into a cover-up, and it has ended in a culture war within the management.
That's a perfect summary.
Now let us pause for a moment to summarize what we have discussed. Pause. We started with a specific incident. A captain making a mistake in New Zealand, getting punched, and telling his bosses mid-game.
Then we looked at the decision to bury that information. Management prioritized the vibe over transparency. They hope to get through the Ashes unscathed.
That decision, it backfired spectacularly. The Ashes were lost, and the secrecy handcuffed management from dealing with other discipline issues during the tour because they were compromised by the secret they were keeping.
And finally, now that the truth is out, we are seeing a reactionary swing in the other direction. A draconian curfew that contradicts the coach's core philosophy, implemented simply to put out the fire and appease the public.
It really is a classic case of the cover-up being almost as damaging, if not more so, than the crime itself.
It forces us to ask a difficult question about high-performance sports and leadership. We often hear about protecting the team bubble, but does hiding the truth to protect confidence ever actually work in the long run?
Or does the secret just rot the foundation from the inside?
In this case, it seems the secrecy created a false environment. They were trying to maintain a relaxed atmosphere that didn't actually exist. The reality was a captain on a final warning and a management team terrified of the press. That is not a relaxed environment. That is a fragile one.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with that image of the great staring contest. You have a coach who wants freedom, and you have a board that demands control.
And in the middle, you have Harry Brook, a young captain trying to regain the trust of his teammates and the fans while navigating a culture that is shifting right beneath his feet.
One thing is for certain. The relaxed era of English cricket is officially over. What comes next is anyone's guess.
Indeed.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the Harry Brook incident. We will be watching closely to see who blinks first in that staring contest. Until next time.